But so far, House Republicans have refused to act on this idea. I haven't heard a good reason why they haven't acted. It's not like they've been busy with other stuff, and they criticize me for this. Boehner sued me for this. And I told him I'd rather do things with you, pass some laws. Middle-class families can't wait for Republicans in Congress to do stuff. So sue me.
In presidential fashion, our commander-in-chief mocking the Republican Party, saying he will not apologize for taking executive action on political and public policy issues, even daring Speaker John Boehner and the House Republicans to sue him. This as the alphabet networks allow our president to escape a crisis in which he has played a major role, our porous borders and the ongoing problem of illegal immigration. But there is one group working to expose that media bias, Newsbusters. And as I'm rejoined by Francesca Page here in studio, we're so happy that we're joined by Geoffrey Dickens, contributing editor to Newsbusters. Geoffrey, we thank you for your time today here on America's Forum.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, Geoffrey, you're doing the tough job of watching all the different news coverage so we can concentrate on what we're doing here on Newsmax TV. Tell us about the bias you found in the media's coverage of this ongoing illegal immigration crisis.
Right. Well, we looked at a total of 45 border crisis stories from June 8th, when the coverage really began, through July 1st. And what we found is that on ABC, CBS, and NBC's evening and morning shows, in those 45 total stories, only 5 times did they bring up Barack Obama's immigration policies or his lack of enforcement of immigration policies as a contributing factor to the ongoing crisis that we see along the U.S.-Mexican border.
Geoffrey, are they not covering the issue, or are they failing to place the blame on Obama?
Well, they are covering the issue, and there's plenty of footage of these unaccompanied children coming across the border. And, these, of course, the reporters and anchors, just sort of worrying about, well, what's happening here. But what they're not doing, what they're failing to do, is to put the blame on Barack Obama, or at least even really, except for 5 stories, bring up his sort of lack of leadership here and how it's contributed to the crisis. It's interesting. What we did find was that on Univision, one of the Spanish language TV networks, one of their correspondents, Jorge Ramos, actually did something that the networks have been unwilling to do, and he put the blame of the immigration crisis squarely on Barack Obama, mentioning that that his deferring of the deportation, the DACA Act, that the fact that 24,000 children have yet to be deported that came over from last year. All of these things are really encouraging these Central American immigrants to come over, thinking that once they're here, they'll be part of the how many thousands or so that get amnestied.
So, Geoffrey, you mentioned Jorge Ramos, and I'll anglicize it, Univision. But have any other publications or networks handled this crisis honestly?
Well, Fox News has done some good coverage of it. But again, we focused on ABC, CBS, and NBC because that's where most of the eyeballs still are. That's where the highest ratings are. That's where, unfortunately, a lot of low information voters still go to get their news. And, it was interesting. You had Barack Obama sort of just waving his finger at the Republican Congress a couple of days ago. And the coverage on ABC, CBS, and NBC News, they all covered him sort of just blaming the House Republicans for this crisis. But in none of those stories did they offer up any of the things that Ramos brought up about how Obama has failed to enforce the law.
Geoffrey, what about NBC creating the Twitter handle Refugee Riders to describe the illegal immigrants?
Right. This happened this morning on the Today Show. They showed the protests that happened in, I think it was Murrieta, California, where they actually turned back some of the buses. And when they ended the piece, Matt Lauer said, he encouraged viewers to go on Twitter and use the hashtag handle refugee riders, which I think really sort of kind of showed where they were siding on. They didn't use a hashtag handle like illegal immigrants or immigration. They used refugee crisis, which really favored sort of the pro-amnesty side.
Well, we had Geoffrey, as I hear that, and of course Matt Lauer makes no bones about how he would love to see Second Amendment rights diluted, abridged in some way. But to use his First Amendment rights, when he's calling them, quote, refugee riders, to my ear, he's trying to equate them with freedom riders in Mississippi and civil rights in the 1960s. This is not a civil rights issue. These are people coming across the border illegally. A couple of minutes left, Geoffrey. I think there's a broader problem. AP and other print organizations no longer refer to these people as illegal aliens. They call them undocumented or migrants or simply immigrants. Are we seeing the language co-opted by journalists and the media almost in Orwellian fashion to try and open up these borders and advocate amnesty?
You're dead on right. In fact, in the stories this morning and the stories last night on the border crisis, I think the phrase illegal was only used once on CBS Evening News. You're definitely seeing this is what the left does. They like to change the language. And you're seeing that the big three networks are adopting that language of undocumented workers and yeah, they're not using illegal as much.
The other irony, of course, is that bit of rhetorical flourish that people lurk in the shadows, and we've seen in some of the coverage this week, nobody in the shadows, some of the illegals showing up on Capitol Hill demanding changes in the law. It's interesting to see this, and of course, Geoffrey, we always make mention of the fact we're not the media, we're Newsmax, so we try to cover this thing and offer insights. Geoffrey Dickens of Newsbusters, we thank you for your insights as you Skyped in with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It is almost shades of 1984, Orwellian use of the language to change the story, try to redefine the debate, and ultimately try to mislead people.
Power of words.
The power of words. There are some words that we have for you, but we want to hear your words for us. Why don't you tweet them to us at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email, our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com. And don't forget Facebook. Some of your comments are straight ahead. Stay tuned.